And so, what's happening? What exactly are you doing these days? What is meme? What exactly are you doing? What is meme? What is a joke? How are you earning with memes?
So again, the idea again is that memes in general is currently, you can say, a force that's unreckonable to an extent. In fact, last night we had one shit poster, also the richest man on earth, post a joke about how he wants to end World War III by taking let's say, the ruler of Russia one on one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see a time, like there has been no time in history where jokes were the way diplomatic conversations were being held. Like I'm sure there are tons of actual diplomatic conversations happening between Russia and the rest of the world as well. But it's Elon Musk sending Starlink routers and then asking Putin to sort of come one on one with him. It's just hilarious how nobody in World War One or Two thought that it would come to this.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, in terms of how memes are sort of like, they're shaping perception in today's world. In terms of, we have like, of course there are cryptocurrencies with strong fundamentals, with amazingly researched white papers and great technology, such as Bitcoin. But we also have two cryptocurrencies whose fundamental is a meme, and both of them have a market cap of 10 billion each. So I felt it was the best time to be in the industry of memes. And of course, they are something that have helped me through my dark phases and have also helped me kill most of my time during college. And I hope the students who are here have also killed at least enough time through memes that one day, well, I am hoping for a day where they teach us Pythagoras theorem through a meme.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I do currently at Slice in terms of memes is that it's majorly about ensuring that the communication we make to our customers is in line with trends. It understands the language of the internet which people are consuming,
Mm-hmm.
so it feels as less of an ad as possible and as less of a press release as possible. But apart from that, I'm also looking after influencer marketing and the YouTube channel at Slice. So we keep engaging with content creators. We understand how to target different audiences through different creators, whether it could be entertainment, it could be finance, it could also be fashion and lifestyle. That's
So,
majorly of my content.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
but I'm like, if we are ready to begin, I'd just like to give one disclaimer
mhm,
before we go before I suggest anything to our bright and upcoming future students, is that like all career advice is actually contextual, like to an extent. Like I'm not going to tell you what to do, I'll tell you what I did. And if you see some inspiration in it, like you can use probably a method that I use somewhere else and apply it to your field or wherever, feel free to take it. But all career advice that you see on the internet or any speaker comes and says it, it's all generic, but your life decisions are specific. The advice that is given does not take into account the particular situation of your life that you may be. So don't take advice from anyone blindly, especially those who have an online course to sell, because motivational
mhm.
speakers will get more out of if you stay confused all your life. And even if you, like for example, if you start investing at 20, you may or may not be rich by 50, but you will definitely watch their videos for 30 years. So always keep your own context in mind before taking any advice from anyone over the internet, especially me. But
Absolutely.
again, Vedant, I'll now let you sort of help me navigate through the session if there are any specific questions we answer. And of course, I have
Yes,
a few pointers that I've written that I'd be sharing over the course of.
absolutely. So, let us start with the journey first. You mentioned that you started this thing. You started, making memes, cracking jokes in college. So let us start with the journey, right from your college. What exactly were you doing? Why did you get into this field? What excited, what was the motivational thing that you find in this industry? Let us start with the journey from the beginning, from the bits days.
So I started making memes while I was in college, simply because one, Facebook was very new in terms of recently everybody had adopted it. And two, we had our college was, let's say, away from the city, so we would mostly spend our times in hostel. So that was the outlet of creative expression, or whatever we could find. I would make memes on situations in college. If, let's say, the food wasn't great, we'd joke about it. There was one incident I remember where someone found an insect in the food, and it was memed all over by us. I'll take partial credit for starting the trend. So it was again all majorly related to fun and games. And then I was like, okay, can I do better? I just tried doing better and better, and as long as it made me and the people around me laugh, I was like just moving on with life. Then I think in my third year is when I saw stand up live for the first time. And I thought, hey, this looks great. And in terms of, it's in line with the kind of jokes I was creating. So by fourth year, I had started dabbling with stand up. Did stand up for the next 2 years after college, while doing a full-time job as well, and then decided to quit and do stand up full-time. While I was working these 2 years, I was working with a startup called Shuttle, which had just raised their Series A at that point. So we were sort of part of the 0 to 1 and the 1 to 10 journey at that point. Changed my job description and profile changed 7 times in the 2 years. So I knew that if there's one thing I will probably end up becoming, it was a generalist, which is currently what I am now, obviously focused around content. Then for the first 2 years, I focused on my own stand-up, wrote my first hour special, toured as much as possible, released 3 videos, reached 1.3 million views in a pre-geo era, which is when data
Mhm.
wasn't that even yet. People made the let's say expense of data to watch my videos. I was very humbled. Then 2 years later, I decided to join someone who had learned comedy, or let's say done better in the game of comedy. So I thought I'll learn a lot and it seemed like a great opportunity. So I started managing another comedian called Kunal Kamra. And in case those are not aware, he just ends up falling into a lot of legal troubles. So I joined him hoping to learn about comedy, but I ended up learning about law. And 2 years later, somebody tags me on LinkedIn, and I see some job opening which says chief meme officer. I thought he was playing a prank. To be very honest, I had not heard of the company till then. Then I checked out, the company had an actual website, and I realized that my friend is too lazy to go to that effort to make a prank like that. So I ended up giving an interview, and I was hoping that I was just curious. Let's see what are they going to ask in the interview for a chief meme officer. And I was hoping that the end of 2 or 3 interviews, whatever we have, I will have 5 minutes of new stand-up material. That was the sole objective I went with, but somehow they were convincing enough, and I decided to jump boats, and here I am.
So let us talk about your current role, Chief Meme Officer at Slice. What exactly do you do at Slice? What exactly does the Chief Meme Officer implies for a person with your background?
So again, I had made memes for myself, sort of done some contributions to Kamra's series of memes as well. So right now, I'm looking at not just creating memes for let's say our social media channels, but also looking at how we can use memes and leverage them across distribution channels. So let's say, as a fintech company, there are a lot of things that we may not be able to tweet or, let's say, post, but it doesn't mean that other content creators cannot post that meme, which is, let's say, around Slice. So I've been looking at meme marketing, influencer marketing, and building Slice's YouTube channel at this point.
Hmm. Okay. And so you said that you found this job through LinkedIn. Okay, that's good. Let us talk about any of your previous roles where you worked on something that is not traditional, that is unconventional, and I would like to particularly understand how exactly you found that job. How did you find that job? Yes.
So well, again, campus placement was L&T, which I had quit in 2 years. In terms of finding ways from non-traditional ways, my first startup job I found on my Facebook feed, which was very surprising. Then doing stand-up was sort of my own thing. In terms of the next role, which was managing Kunal Kamra, how like the conversation started with me helping him take interviews to find a candidate, and after 3 years of not finding the right candidate, I decided to take it up myself. So the thing is that at this point, you always like well, I'm just sort of jealous of the generation today that they have prosper in India right now. But I have hunted and found jobs in the weirdest of places. So and especially at times when I wasn't even looking.
Mhm. Hmm. And so, is it safe to assume that social media is a good source of information or jobs that are not usual or unconventional again uh, in the market? Is it right for me to say that?
Absolutely. In terms of every company does post, let's say, openings on job sites, but at the end they either look for referral or they look to, at the end you have to find a way to cut through clutter. Now even like if you make any job public and you see that within a few hours it says over 200 plus applicants, simply because LinkedIn has given us a quick apply or easy apply button. And which is why it becomes impossible for anyone looking for a job to go through all of them, which is why they first look at everyone who's applied through, let's say, a channel where there's less clutter. Now it could be Twitter DMs, it could be writing a cold email to the right person, it could be going through, let's say, a consultancy, or maybe a lot of companies are what they're preferring is that first they list on certain platforms. I think Prospel would be one of them, and then they start expanding towards the public platforms like LinkedIn and Naukri.com and others.
Hmm. I see that you have a very good following on Instagram, LinkedIn. Uh, uh, so to stay relevant on these social media platforms, I believe the primary thing is to build content, to put content out there. What would you advise us as to how we can create content? How do you create content? Where do you find the inspiration to create content?
Yeah, I'm a lazy person. It's not that I can take a cab in Bangalore and go to a particular GPN and their inspiration is waiting for me. I just keep scrolling on the internet, and that's how most of the perception of everybody's world is formed today. Like whether an issue has blown out of proportion or not, you will eventually end up checking Twitter or another social media platform. And how you know it is if you see 7 8 people posting about it, then you know, okay, that a lot of people are talking about it. Of course, trending sections are an indicative as yes. What I personally do is I just experience my life, and whatever I feel is something that I'd like to talk about, or I feel that I have something funny in my mind related to something, I just go ahead and post it. The idea is that you could obviously, let's say, seek out experiences to get inspiration, but it will be you'll have to ensure that you can narrate it in a way that people who have not had that experience can still understand.
Hmm. So making things simple is the key here. Is that right?
Simple and also contextual, like in
Mhm.
let's say if I was to talk, like let's say everybody has seen a skydiving video. What if let's say, for example, if the Richard Branson had to do a stand-up set about going to space. Now it's not something that he can directly talk about the way he would talk about skydiving. He would have to probably establish more context. How does space feel like? Probably how space travel is different from, let's say, skydiving. So the idea is to understand where your audience is coming from, what is it that they would know, what is it that they would not know, and then ensure that you clear the parts that they don't know.
Hmm. Interesting. So, one advice that I can derive from what you have shared is that it can be beneficial for all of us to stay relevant on social media, keep up with the news, keep up with the happenings on social media, and it can help us with the creativity. It can help us with um, you know understanding things and creating new content. Any comments on that or any addition to that?
Like, matlab, we can try, but I'd still say that it's essentially going to be impossible to stay relevant all the time for
Mhm.
most people. Like there'll be tons of let's say artists and actors and singers that you and I have grown up listening to, but sadly we don't see them around simply because when you're especially when you're building a personal brand, or you're dealing in a B2C sort of scenario, people have the tendency to get bored. And what I have observed in the past 20 years, that an average life cycle of an artist is around 5 years. If you take, let's say, for example, taking the singer Shan, he's an amazing singer. However, somehow we don't see as many songs of him coming out as we would probably see of Arijit Singh. 2 years later, it could become Pratik Bhatt. We don't know who the love ballet singer for Bollywood is going to be for the next 10 years. So, with time, most of us will become irrelevant. The idea is that either you reinvent yourself or you find a newer audience who had not discovered you before. And as older people keep going, you keep finding a newer audience in case you are planning to be in a career that's B2C.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, for the participants who are in this room, we are going to do a NFT giveaway in the end. So stay tuned, and yes, that's it. Again, getting to the conversation, let us start a completely new tangent here. We talked about social media, we talked about content. Let us talk about other unconventional careers, other options that that students or graduates can opt to. Are there any fixed? Are there any specific job roles or career opportunities that you can think of, or maybe you can suggest, her, which are not usual, which are not conventional?
There definitely are, but in terms of right now, like obviously memes is one career that's being hired for. Employer branding is something that did not exist a couple of years ago, only when hiring the best talent became a bigger challenge. And that's something that even hiring consultancies could not fulfill, is when companies started investing in employer branding to make the company, let's say, more lucrative for people to join. What I can say is that you cannot predict what new role will come 2 years later. Like 2 years ago, when I was doing stand up, nobody would have told me that a role like chief meme officer will exist 2 years from now. So you better prepare for it. So nothing I say right now can probably prepare you for the roles that will come 2 years later. What you can prepare is unique skills that very, very few people will have, that will make you sort of, let's say, hundreds of people will have consulting experience, hundreds of people will have copywriting or creative experience. But if there's something that you can bring to the table that very few people will have, will help you get a job to an extent that even you can own. Like once you decide to join a particular organization, they'd be more than willing to craft out that role for you. So be as valuable as you can, and you can work for the company you want to.
So instead of following the usual path, in case if anyone would like to follow their passion, it is better to understand what value offering they can do for a company and then propose their thing to the company. um, am I right in saying that, in as a conclusion to what you have said?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Although I would like to add that
Mhm.
career and passion may not intersect. Like passion is a an amazing dream sold to us by Imtiaz Ali, and even though I love his movies, a lot of it might not translate to real life, because matlab, there's a lot of like obviously for artistic reasons they have to even out a story, which is why they leave out the immense amount of chaos we are in. Like most of the characters who are, let's say, following their dreams usually don't have any restrictions, don't have, they don't show their peers doing amazingly well, which also leads to a lot of pressure at our current current youth, who's like a lot of young people I meet are pressurized into following a career that's high paying simply because everybody else around them is. So I hope that's not something that holds back most of you, and you feel free enough to decide what you want to do comfortably and happily.
That brings me to a question that someone has asked, which is, uh, what is the general outlook of the society when they hear what you do to earn money? समाज
uh,
क्या कहता है?
sir, let's say the society will never be happy, And the point is that there are two kinds of people. One who will ask just out of curiosity is what they do, and you and the other people who just want to sort of put you in a box. And how do you identify is that once you tell them what you do, the next question will either be what do you do in that versus how much do you make. The ones who ask what do you do in that are the curious ones, and the one who ask how much do you make are just trying to put you in a box. And it doesn't matter, even if you, let's say, made $1 million by just scrolling the internet, they'd still consider you more valuable. Or even if you were, let's say, a gangster and still made more money, they'd still sort of put you in a box of a rich person, and that's what they want to do.
Hmm. No, absolutely. So, what has your mantra been like to deal with the societal, questions?
The idea is to be an interesting person who has great comebacks. There have been times where I've told my relatives that I sell drugs so that they don't ask the next question. Because see, if you tell them you work in marketing in tech XYZ, that is the only time they can ask you that how much do you make. But if you tell them they sell drugs, they are more baffled and they want to walk away from that conversation before they get to the question that they actually want to ask.
Absolutely. Uh, there's another question. How much money? How much money can I make by being a stand-up comedian or someone in this domain?
Okay. I think my relatives are already here. Hello, Chacha ji. Hello, Mama ji. Nice to meet you. But from a stand-up perspective, again, I'd say that when all of us started, we had no idea something like an Amazon special or a Netflix special could be on the card. So at that time, we had imagined that okay, whatever we'd make would be, let's say, from a corporate show. And at that time, the ticket sizes were anywhere between 30K to 1L for a show. Obviously, the because it's a freelance business, the demand staggeringly varies. You could probably have 4 shows in a month, and you could probably have no show in 3 months. So you don't know how much you would end up making. But at the same time, then when these specials, brand work, Instagram following, and everything came up, now uh, let's say 2 years from now or 3 years from now, we could have NFT collections or creators launching their own coins. So I can, when you ask the question, how much money can you make as a stand-up comedian? I think that is entirely dependent on you and how many new opportunities can you think where stand-up can be done.
Hmm, absolutely. So ultimately, it depends on the candidate, on the individual, how creative they are in their content and in making money. Being from an engineering background, how do you think that your knowledge has helped you in the career that you are in, although they are two separate things?
So I'd say that the only time my engineering studies come into picture is when I'm, let's say, performing for an engineering college, and I can know that I can name a few subjects, and then they would feel that the show is even more relatable to them rather than me just going about my regular life or my relation with parents or office jokes or whatever. So, but then that ways I also know what courses are taught in medical, in law, and in 6 other courses as a preparation for any college that I might have to perform in tomorrow. But if you say in terms of becoming a better comedian, you're in most probability, let's say 80% of your college education may or may not be useful unless you go into the hard sciences or the exact core field that you are in. And we have to be okay with that. The colleges are not at fault. At the end, there are people who have spent 10-15 years of research who are professors there, but the industry changes their demand every 2-3 years. So changing the entire curriculum for a university in every 3 years is going to be hard, which is why we still have colleges doing the same branches that they used to 20 years ago, even if the demand for those branches is no longer the same.
Hmm, true, absolutely. So, from that perspective, uh, what do you think? How important it is for someone to find success in life? How dependent success is on the college from your college of your graduation?
Mm, I'll say कि success is easier if you're from that college and you have more of a comfort mindset, because if when you have, let's say, a degree from a decent college, what happens is that you always have the option to fall back, to go back to your job. I have comedian peers, I have comedian friends who were, let's say, from non-famous colleges, and their employers threatened that they will ensure that they never get a job, and they discourage them significantly that in case they're going to quit the job to pursue comedy, they will never be able to make money, and which sort of discourages them from taking that risk as well. But I'll say that's a privilege that I have, that like just like I could join Slice back, I'm sure every person who takes a plunge into something unknown, it could be starting their own company, it could also be trying to pursue a career in arts, they will still have the option to fall back on any career, and they will have
Hmm.
backup options. Plus it also opens a lot of doors in terms of through college alumni, when you need an introduction, when you need someone in a certain industry, then this sort of helps you get in.
Hmm. So backup and security is the thing. But what I can also understand from your words is that it doesn't define what a person should do, what a person can do. So ability is
Absolutely.
not a constraint here. Hmm.
It does help you have backups, but at the same time, to excel in the field you are, uh, you will not have any advantage because just because you went to another college. Like, especially at least in the field of comedy, we have had shows where we have had a director from, let's say, Xbox, and we have had a guy who was probably just finished college, and the audience gives both of them exactly equal opportunity. The end outcome is that they have to make people laugh, and the only thing that matters on stage is whether you are funny or not. Nobody's going
Hmm.
to laugh at your joke a little extra because you're from IIT or BITS or some other college. And again, recent controversy, but printing I am on milk packets is definitely not going to make your milk sell better.
I was about to touch that topic, but yes. So there's a question in the chat section. I believe you
I
can
just missed
pursue.
I read Sonal's question. Sonal, I do agree. When you say that you're trying to figure out what to do, how to really begin is just keep trying as many things as possible. Like I joined my first company, Shuttle, in 2015, and I was from a civil engineering background. For the past 2 months, I had been building roads, and here I was in a tech company. So luckily, the startup allowed me to switch between 7 roles and then see what they wanted me to do the most. In terms of you, I don't, depending on whether you're in college or in existing career, if you're in college, you can intern with 10 different companies for a month and then decide what is it that you want to do. In case you're already working, you can, let's say, look at spending your part-time hours with another company or in another role, or probably volunteering to work for a certain role, creating your own side projects, again, which is something that everybody on internet says, but it's also important to understand what is the outcome and what are the skills that you're taking away from it. If you are looking at content creation, then obviously you can experiment with different forms. These days reels, memes, and a lot of things have a lot of potential, but in case you want to keep paying bills, or if you have dependents, or if you have responsibilities, or if you want to just maintain the lifestyle you have, you can continue doing the job that you are doing. And in case it's too hectic, it might even make sense to, let's say, look toward, if you want really keen on exploring, then you might make sense to look for a less hectic job and then give time to these things.
Hmm. Right. Where I mean, this is more like an interview question. Where do you see yourself in this industry, maybe in the next couple of years?
So I'd say I can be sure for this year I am definitely at Slice. uh, my most of my career, like I have jumped opportunities in a week to an extent that whether it was Shuttle, again it happened Monday I saw the Facebook post, and on Saturday I had the offer letter. In case of Slice also, 27th June is when I had my first call with them, and 1st of July is when I was officially a part of the company. In case of Camera also, I think we had just one discussion for 3 hours or so, and then the next day onwards I was handling everything. So in terms of where do I see myself, I don't. I just live as every day as it comes, and then I move ahead.
Going with the flow.
Yep. You
Uh,
can, like, we don't know that, we don't even know what jobs will exist for next year.
hmm,
How do we know that whether we will be in them or not?
absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned the quick association with Kunal Kamra. Uh, can you talk, take us through how exactly you reached out to him? What happened? How did you join? Just so that we can understand how we can approach people like him for jobs.
So again, here I had, again, the beauty of stand up is that when you are doing open mics, you are mostly, let's say, everybody is same. As I said, that the audience decides who's funny on one night and who's not. So Kunal, I think, started doing comedy around 6 months ago me. So we used to bump into each other at a lot of open mics.
Mm-hmm.
And again, after, again, 2 years later, he releases videos, becomes famous, his work's doing well. Then another 1 or 2 years later is when he tells me that he wants to quit his management and is looking for someone who can full time help him managing him. So I put out a job posting on LinkedIn because he's someone who doesn't use LinkedIn at all. We interviewed a few candidates and then realized that it's probably sort of not, we're not finding the correct person. So then I thought that okay, I'll only take it up. And what I was looking at was getting to perform across the country in an audience size which I personally will not be able to pull. But later on I realized that I get to meet a lot of politicians. I also get to know what's actually happening behind the scenes. And you'll be very surprised that no matter how politicians might sort of be abusing each other, people of opposite parties, behind the scenes they are friends and they even end up chilling together and having a drink.
That may be
So
a topic for a different conversation, but that is going to be an interesting conversation, I'm sure.
yeah.
Uh, so basically, what you're saying is that it is beneficial to have a good professional network, and through that network, you can always find opportunities. Be ready to tap into those opportunities whenever they appear. Any more thing to add here?
And yeah, like, basically be nice to people wherever you meet them. Like a lot of times what happens is that and this is something that I've seen my own batchmates and people from good institutions do, is that when they meet people who may not be from those amazing institutions, they either treat them differently and don't inherently give them respect. My suggestion is that you treat everyone respectfully and be nice irrespective of what their background and what their abilities are. And if you were to, like, if I were to, let's say, follow the arrogance at the time I met the other young comedians, like there was a time where in a random open mic with 13 audience members, there were 8 struggling comedians who had just started, who were not funny yet. And today 3 of them are on Netflix. Kunal was not chosen to be on Netflix. There was Rahul Subramaniam, and tons of them started at the same way as just people from regular jobs. Nobody knew what everybody did behind it or what they had studied. But what we all knew is that we are here to respect a craft and try comedy, and that is why we had everybody's mutual respect.
So respect everyone, respect everyone's career, respect everyone's background, and be kind to everyone. Okay.
Yep. Uh,
Sounds.
do we want to take the 2 questions in chat?
Please, please go ahead.
So Nishi has that. And do you have any masterclass where some organized steps and follow the plan? I'll be very honest. If anyone tells you that if you follow this masterclass, you'll become this and that, it's only going to sell you a course. Most of career and most of opportunities happen in serendipity and your own hard work. If you want to look at masterclass where organized steps and a plan is given, it's called college, and somehow it's not working for most of us. So we are all at the end looking out for jobs for things that are not taught in in our colleges. So expect every masterclass also to get outdated in 3 to 6 months itself. What you can do is just ask questions one to one from people who are working, try and learn those skills, have a few skills that are unique, have a good relation with more people, and then you'll find better opportunities. Taking the second one is that career pivot you have from job at a startup to stand up. What are the ensures that the pivot was not just sudden whim and what you were getting into. So the groundwork I did at that time was, one, I had completed 2 years at Shuttle. The people I was working with were starting to move towards other opportunities. And what I was realizing was that I had gained some amount of skill in stand up to an extent that I knew my jokes were working, but at the rate of which I was growing was suffering due to because I had a job as well. So what I told myself was that I'll quit for 1 year. The only thing that I lose is 1 years of salary. Now, which I understand comedy may not be able to match, but if at the end of 1 year I can create a 1 hour special, release videos, then I would have probably some revenue flowing. And I was privileged enough that my parents like did not need anything from me. Like to an extent, I only had to look after myself, which I was confident of that I will be able to. The second groundwork I did was to speak to a few comedians and understand that how do I sort of ensure that I'm getting as much stage time as possible. Like 3 months before, no, actually 5 months before I had quit, I had taken a 1 month sabbatical and had taken an India tour of open mics where I traveled to, like, I started from Delhi, then Bombay, Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and did open mics in every city. I got to know the circuit of every city. So I knew that whenever I have to travel, I can speak to these people and they will ensure that I can find a stage I can perform. And obviously, what I did know is that if I had quit L&T and I had been able to find a job at Shuttle in 7 days, worst case, if I start looking again 1 or 2 years later, I'll be able to find something in a month. Then next is there a design to follow, like a procedure, or is it just passion? It's neither passion nor procedure. It's just me keeping my ears open, seeing what's happening around me, and then reacting to it. Then is there a specific process you follow while making memes? Uh, not really a process. It's just that you, again, thanks to being on live stage, I have an understanding of what is going to be funny and what's not. Obviously you can get that by consuming enough amount of memes, which I feel you already have. Just do it from an analytical perspective. What I just do check is that one, I, after making or before making the meme, I think of, okay, who is this meme relevant for? So you'll see that there are a lot of meme, like I have a different sort of persona and content pieces on Instagram, and on Twitter and LinkedIn it's almost the same. If I decide to pursue another platform, it could be entirely different too. So just know your audience, decide what the platform is for. And even though, like, let's say I might have the least amount of followers on Twitter as compared to the other two platforms, but I do know that I reach out to a lot more smarter people, let's say, who are connected in the startup ecosystem. Probably some of them are unicorn founders and people who are decision makers, operators in key companies. So I make jokes more relevant to them, and I know that in case tomorrow if I have to look for a job opportunity, I can easily find it through Twitter. uh, to be very honest, I moved to Bangalore in September, and in my housewarming itself, I invited around 15-20 people. And in that house party itself, 3 job offers were rolled out to other people, matlab, because they met each other at my house. They felt if this is possible, so they took the conversation forward, and eventually people got hired. Sorry, Vidhan, keeping you on hold for a long time. This is the last one. Graduate from 2013 batch, 5 years in teaching, shifted to data science. Was not good at programming. I'm looking for management roles. Please give me advice on how to go ahead. You completed my BTech. So again, thanks for sharing your exact context here. Now, you, in case you're all still in a role at data science and you feel that your analytical skills are not growing too well, probably look at managing 1 or 2 people. I'm assuming since you're 2013 graduate, you're at least old enough to ask for the company to give you 1 or 2 associates who will help you. And there are chances that they might be better than you. And it's great to manage people who are more skilled at data science. What you can do is experience managing them. How do you enjoy it? Do you understand that you are able to carve out a path of growth for them? You're able to motivate them to do things, to push themselves, to learn more. You help them sort of learn new skills that they want to or will be beneficial. Like, even if you may not be good at programming, you will still know better than them that what are the things that they can learn to become better at data science. And if you feel you're able to mentor them and help them grow and improve the output that the company would have had from them if you weren't there, that is when you know that management is for you, and only then you make a switch. Because in the rare case you decide to spends an X amount of money and 2 years of your time in an MBA, and then you later realize that maybe MBA is also not for you, it will be, let's say the cost is going to be much high. So try things where you are and then know that it's going to work. Like Manish says, how can I develop my skills for marketing related jobs? Mm, speaking to obviously a lot of people in marketing, seeing what they are publishing. Like again, first understand that there are different verticals. One is obviously the traditional marketing where there's billboards, TV and other things. There is performance marketing where you do Facebook and Google ads. Luckily they have Facebook and Google themselves have their own courses. They also allow, you can probably take a small budget of, let's say, 10-15,000 from your own pocket and try and spend it on a particular product. You could also do a part-time internship with any design agencies now, or let's say performance marketing agencies. It may not pay much, but you'll at least get the experience of how work is done. So you'll, one, learn how it's done. Two, you'll learn whether it's for you or not. Then in terms of, in case you want to go for brand marketing or influencer marketing, then again, obviously there are influencer marketing agencies where you can work and understand how the both aspects works. In terms of brand marketing, you will probably have to be at an agency full time. In case you can't do that, you can still try and see what other people are doing, or if your current work, if you're in college, then you obviously have the chance. In case you're in an office, you can probably think if you can get a 1 month sabbatical and try it out and then come back. How to fight fake news and misinformation in digital news world. Anupam, I hate to break it to you, but there is no right or wrong, only context. People have certain beliefs. They're more prone to believing a particular news than the other. What you can do is have a certain sense of morality of your own, that irrespective of what people be forgiving, and not, let's say, blame an individual for an action of a group. And that ways you can, let's say, not only stay more neutral as well, and you can be more human also, because there are a lot of people who stand to gain from dividing people. Just don't be one of them. Okay, one more question from Gulshan is that I have experience in meme marketing and meme making. How to approach companies for a job in this field? Just send 5 to 10 memes that you made, which you feel are your best, and say you'd like to work with them. Now there are meme marketing agencies. What you can also do is that most companies sort of display their portfolio or their clients on their website. So you can go to their website, see who their clients are, think that what are the memes that will work for this brand, make those memes, send it along with your resume and say, hey, I want to work with you. If even if they don't hire you, at least they'll ask them for feedback on your memes. And and obviously if you search meme marketing in general on LinkedIn, you'll find at least 7-8 companies. Should not be too hard, but being very honest, in case you're working for an agency, now it could be any creative agency for that matter, the pay might not look reasonable to someone who might have graduated from IIT. You will have two options: either to work for 1 year, understand how the agency works, and then start your own. There's a gentleman named Ayush Wadhwa who's from Bits, who's started his own agency and has done great work. He's also the guy who's been recording Ankur Wariku's videos. So you'll realize that it's still, and matlab, and sadly the business model of any agency is that they find underpaid people and overcharge the client, and the difference is their margins. So expect those kind of pay differences in a creative agency. Biotech postgraduate soon, but I don't feel the field passionate or interesting enough. I've been thinking of developing my poetry skills, but don't know how to start. Well, like any creative profession, poetry, you can obviously write, you can visit poetry events, go on Book My Show, see what are the poetry events that are happening, attend them as audience, speak to the poets after the show. I'm sure they'll be more than coming. They'll probably share a few tips. They'll tell you what to read. And that's the way you can, in terms of sort of climb the ropes on how to get started with poetry. Obviously, a lot of people will say ki just record your poems and put it out as content. But my advice there is, then majority of your attention is diverted towards trying to understand the algorithm, and you stop sort of this improving your skills at that point. So avoid that until you feel that you are ready and your poets and your performance skills have gone to a certain extent, or at least good enough that you feel that you can go ahead and post. That's the end of it, Vedant, at least the questions. Now, if you have any, or if there's anything else I can add.
I mean, uh, if you don't need a dose of Glucon D, you can continue with a couple of more questions in the Q&A section. If you can
Oh,
access
yes.
that part.
I can. And also, if any of you is planning to work in facilities engineering, please don't make these sensor lights which switch off even when I'm in the room, or at least remove this bug which is making my face dark. Navneet says, how to stay relevant for a position as a meme officer. Mostly organizations don't fancy such positions. How to deal with that? See, like, let's say if after I'm done with Slice in, let's say, whatever time, my next position may or may not be called meme officer. Being very honest, all designations are lollipops. They don't mean anything. You could be given one designation and your work could be another. The idea of designations is to lure people. Like, a lot of people move from one organization to the other thinking that they are moving from manager to senior manager, but how the company has structured it there is that senior manager is doing, let's say, lower or less important work, and they realize it after they've gone. So I would still if tomorrow my designation was changed from chief meme officer to meme intern, I would still be doing the same work because that's what I've chosen to do. The idea is that you do enough things so that when you have a conversation with a new organization, you can show them your work. You can show that this is what I've done, and that's when you can show that you as a person and your skills are far more important than the designation. Shweta has juggled between various job roles. How do you handle the continuous shift in work? So in terms of, I think my job switches have been, like, my role switches have been enough in shuttle. I started in policy, then moved to social media, then moved to CRM, then also performance marketing, and communications is what something I was also handling there. The idea was, again, that's something that happens at an early stage startup, or let's say worst case a series A startup, is that we don't know what is the thing that we will need next. Like, for example, when I joined, we probably did not have push notification service, but the moment that feature was built, that's when we realized, oh, we need someone who has good grammar, who can write our push notification skills. They saw around, they saw me, he said, they literally said, will you write it? I said, sure. The idea is just say yes and be willing to try. I'm not saying that you'll be the best at it, but keep trying. You will know whether you want. Like, you could talk to 100 product managers and understand their work, but you will only experience the work once you have done it for a month. Everybody in management consulting will tell you it's great, you get to travel a lot. What they don't tell you is that even if you get the fanciest hotel in the city, you still have to get up at 4 a.m. and take the flight. What is your view on the growth of unconventional careers for the next 5 or 10 years? You can say that, let's say, considering the colleges that you guys are in, you understand the benefit of being in, let's say, the top 2%. So most unconventional careers are 2% of the total opportunities that are there. Obviously, some of the opportunities that are unconventional today will become mainstream tomorrow. Let's say 7 or 8 years ago, social media manager was a very unique thing because brands had just made their first social media accounts and only 8 brands had social media accounts in the first month. So then everybody's like, hey, this is a like, your uncles and aunts would have, like, there's a social media manager also, and do, like, people pay you to run Facebook. Was surprising. Today we can't even think of a company without a social media manager. So tomorrow meme officer could either become that or become non-existent. But there will be newer let's say unconventional roles that will be created as organizations face newer challenges. uh, So just be prepared, be willing to try, think of what you will do, ask other people who you feel are smart enough for advice. Find 4 or 5 things that you can do, you do them, you know the results, you know that out of these 5 things to work. Now you are at least somewhat of an expert in the field. What other unconventional career opportunities you can foresee? Well, of course, employer branding is one that I feel will grow in the coming years. Meme officer, maybe. I think it will. but very few will be able to actually leverage it properly, or it will, let's say, become a super seeing version of social media manager itself. The third role, which I feel, well, at least in marketing, is influencer marketing manager, is something that will come up, because earlier companies used to just outsource it to the agency, but now as companies are building in-house teams, they will need an influencer marketing manager inside as well. Manish, I think I've already answered your question in the main chat as well. How can I develop my skills for marketing related jobs? Cool. That's
Great.
majorly. There's a lot of my notes which I had written, which I would share, and have sort of not been picked up. So I'll just add a few points that just ensure you're not sort of going through something extremely painful, because as they say, you have one life and life is too short to be pushing yourself. Like, you don't shouldn't be have to watch 4 motivational videos to get out of bed, go to office. At least, I'm not saying your entire job would be amazing. There should be at least 10-20% of your part of your job which you enjoy really and you look forward to doing. And anybody will tell you that this is the path to becoming something else. Like, if you want to go to an MBA, first you do engineering, then get 2 years of work ex, do some community service, then you can apply to Harvard. And then you can think of, let's say, breaking the glass ceiling and becoming a CEO eventually. uh, Probably less than 0.001% of people who join corporate eventually become CEOs. And Twitter and other companies have shown that you don't need an MBA to become a CEO at the first place. We have techies directly becoming CEOs and founders. And just hedge your bets in a way that if you don't have an education loan or people financially dependent on you, take as many risks as you want and try as many jobs. Not saying a new job every week, but can always try new opportunities in freelance and as part-time, or assisting someone who's already doing it. And like, if you enjoy sort of what, at least a part of what you're doing, then you wouldn't need to wait for your annual week off to do skydiving. And matlab, you'll probably feel the thrill in work itself if you're trying something new. And don't blindly listen to people with years of experience and people who have made it, because they did it in different circumstances. If you ask someone 10 years ago, they would say, let's say traditional companies are more reliable than startups. Probably today, some people might say reverse. 3 years later, neither of them could be true. So what worked for them may not. You can see what's happening 6 months max to max in the last 2 years, but the market changes every 2 years. So what skills are needed, what's a good career option, also changes every 2 years. And if you were to take the advice of experienced people, we have enough parents in the world who are suggesting government jobs, and IAS is the best option to go. Next, okay, there's an anonymous attendee question also. How will you think these unconventional careers will affect the existing mainstream careers? Uh, it's not necessary that the unconventional career person will be earning more than the mainstream one. Mainstream careers will still exist. They will, you say, na, to be offbeat, there has to be a beat. So for an offbeat career, there will have to be enough people to define that that's mainstream. Social media manager is now mainstream. Earlier, it was an unconventional career, and it's probably not as well played as, let's say, some other roles. So the how much your role is played is not just dependent on the industry or the role, but it's also depending on which company you are in. Like, for example, a product manager at ICICI Bank pays way differently than a product manager at Flipkart. And if you were to take even unconventional careers also, firefighter is also an unconventional career, yet most of us would not take it up. So how much you earn based on how much that like right now, fintechs and crypto companies are paying more than, let's say, a delivery startup or a company that is on a late stage. So how much you make is dependent on how much money is flowing into that industry, and also how fast are you rising. I think that's the last one. Or if I missed any, okay, what are your thoughts on freelancing and as a career? Absolutely lovely. You will have to work less. You will make more. Just you will have to deal with some amount of uncertainty of how much you don't know by the end of the year how much you're going to make. And secondly, the most painful part is sort of the clients you're working with. There's a lot of admin work that you have to do, which is essentially making invoices, following up, submitting your documents. So just make sure, if you're working as a freelancer, take 50% advance and refuse all clients that don't do that, because nothing is worth your time and peace and money. I personally have left following up for money from a lot of clients, simply because you follow up for 3.5 months, and then you're like, the time you're spending is worth more than the money you're about to receive. So insist on advance. But freelancing is great. If you think you have the courage to do it, please by all means do, and ensure that you keep yourself active. And you, because once you're doing working as a freelancer, you update your skills much faster, and you have the time to take on new projects which help you learn new things. But if when you're in a company, then one, you will only do certain redundant tasks. Two, if you have time left, then the company will try and assign you things that may not be under your purview, and that may not be something that you want to learn, because they understand, okay, we are paying the person for the entire day, so we have to give them some work to get value for our money. But in freelancing, you decide, okay, these are the only things I will do, and this is how much I will get paid for it, and rest of the time is yours.
A couple of very, very good, insightful things that you have shared, Garv. I've personally learned a lot of new things from your experience that you have shared with all of us.